You ever had one of those DMV mornings? You know the kind where the coffee didn't kick in, the line's out the door, and you're already regretting every decision that brought you here? Well, imagine that. Now add this. A man's voice starts rising at the front of the line. He's pleading with the clerk, frustration in every syllable. People start shifting in their chairs. You can feel it building like a thunderstorm about to crack. And right then, when tension is about to explode, Clint freaking Eastwood walks in. Yeah, that Clint Eastwood. No entourage, no sunglasses, just a wrinkled form in a denim jacket holding a folder like everyone else. Silent, watching. You're going to want to stick around for what happens next, because in a room full of stress, raised voices, and boiling tempers, he didn't shout, he didn't threaten. He changed the entire room with one quiet move. And by the end of this story, you'll remember exactly why Clint Eastwood is a legend, not just on the screen, but in moments like this. So let's rewind. Let me tell you exactly how it all went down. His name was David, 52 years old, a truck driver by trade. Not a talker, not a troublemaker, just a guy who'd hit a rough patch, lost his job when the company downsized, and now standing in line at the DMV to get his CDL renewed, hoping that today would be the first step to getting back on his feet. But fate had other plans. David steps up to the counter, hands trembling just enough to be noticeable. The clerk looks over his paperwork and then shakes her head. "You're missing Form 14C. He blinks. "What? No, I emailed that last night. I swear. I need a printed copy." "I don't have a printer," David says. "I don't even have a smartphone. I live in a trailer. I can't just—" "Next in line, please." The room freezes. She's not yelling, but that cold tone slices through David like a blade. He's still standing there, stunned. "This is my job. I can't get rehired without this." People start turning around. An old woman 2 seats over mutters, "Here we go again." A younger guy with earbuds pops one out to listen. The tension is electric. Everyone can feel it. David's voice rises. Not yelling, but sharp, clipped. "I'm not leaving without my license." A security guard near the door stiffens, starts moving toward him, and that's when you notice Clint Eastwood has been standing a few feet away the whole time, quiet, patient, watching, and then he speaks. "Let's take a breath." Everything stops. Eyes swing toward him. It's like time hit pause. You ever see a room recognize someone? Not because they're famous, but because they carry a kind of weight? That's what just happened. Clint doesn't move fast. He doesn't have to. He steps forward slowly like he's walking into a bar scene he's seen 1,000 times before, only this time, there's no camera rolling. David doesn't back away, but his body shifts, like some of the anger drains out, replaced with confusion. Clint stands beside him, looks at the clerk, then back at David. "We all get pushed to the edge," he says, "but how you handle it, that's what people remember." Nobody says a word. The security guard stops mid-step. David exhales, shaky. His jaw tightens, but he nods, just barely. He's listening now. You can see it. Then Clint reaches into his folder, pulls out a small envelope, holds it out, not to David, but to the clerk. He's got what he needs now. The clerk frowns, confused. She opens the envelope, and her eyebrows rise. Inside is the missing form. Form 14C. Printed, signed. Exactly what David was missing. The room is still dead silent. David turns, stunned. How did you... Clint shrugs. "You emailed it to the wrong address. I got it by mistake. Figured I'd bring it with me." Total lie, but nobody questions it. David's eyes well up. He can't find words. Clint just gives him a firm pat on the shoulder. "Take the win. Get your license." The clerk, clearly shaken out of her routine, looks at the form again. She blinks, then slowly begins typing. No protest. No argument. She stamps something, clicks her mouse, looks up at David. "You're approved." And that's when it happens. A sound you never hear in a DMV. Applause. It starts small, 1 or 2 people, then more. Soft clapping. A kind of quiet respect, because everyone knows what almost happened, and what actually did. David doesn't smile. Not yet. He's still catching up. But Clint, he's already walking back to his seat. No speeches, no smile, doesn't wait for praise. He just finishes his own paperwork like nothing happened. David finally manages to speak, voice cracking a little. "Why would you help me?" Clint doesn't look up. "Because someone once helped me. You'll pass it on someday." And that's it. That's the whole exchange. And somehow, that made it even heavier. Because in a world full of shouting and chest beating, that calm, quiet strength, that's what people remember. David walked out of the DMV that day not just with a license, but with his dignity still intact. And he couldn't stop thinking about it. The way the room changed, the silence, the eyes, the feeling that something bigger had just happened. Even if no one said it out loud. He got his job back 3 weeks later. Same company. They'd held the spot. But he didn't tell anyone the DMV story. Not yet. Not even his wife. Until one night, months later, he was sitting on the porch, watching the sky shift to purple. And something just clicked. He wrote a letter. Simple, honest. Sent it to the local paper. Didn't even sign his last name. And 3 days after it was published, it exploded. Hundreds of comments. That sounds just like Clint. This made me cry. That's the kind of story we need right now. Because the moment itself was small, barely a few minutes, but what it represented, it was enormous. A reminder that calm is powerful, that dignity is contagious, that you don't have to raise your voice to be heard. And suddenly, people started sharing the story everywhere, with captions like, "This is how you carry yourself, even when no one's watching." No interviews, no social media post, no quote confirming it ever happened. Clint Eastwood didn't comment, didn't acknowledge it, didn't turn it into a moment. And that's what made the story even more powerful. Because the world's gotten so loud. Every act of kindness today comes with a selfie or a hashtag. But this was different. This was old school. No cameras, no agenda, just a man who saw something going sideways and chose to step in. Not because it made him look good, but because it was the right thing to do. And for a certain generation watching this right now, you feel that in your bones. That's the kind of strength your father taught you, the kind of moment your grandfather would nod at without saying a word, and that's why this story won't just go viral, it'll stick. Because it reminds us of something we're desperate not to lose. That being a man isn't about volume, it's about values. A week after the story went viral, a man claiming to be the DMV security guard posted anonymously on a forum. He said, "I've worked that job 7 years, seen yelling, crying, threats. That day, I thought it was going to blow up. I was ready to step in." But then Clint spoke, and here's what the guard wrote. "I've seen people diffuse fights, but that wasn't diffusing. That was presence. Like the temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. I didn't have to do anything. He didn't even raise an eyebrow." It wasn't just about stopping a fight, it was about resetting the entire room. He said it was the first time in years that people thanked him after a shift. Someone even brought him coffee the next morning. That's the ripple effect. One man speaks gently, and suddenly the whole atmosphere realigns. It's not magic. It's just what happens when someone walks in with weight and uses it, not to control, but to calm. A few weeks after the story broke, another letter showed up in the same local paper. This time, it was from David's wife. She didn't give her name, just signed it, "A Grateful Wife." She wrote, "My husband doesn't talk much about feelings, but something changed in him after that day. Not just because he got his job back, but because someone reminded him he was worth helping." She described how David came home with a different kind of energy, calmer, straight. Like the weight he'd been carrying, shame, fear, frustration, had finally shifted off his shoulders. And then she said something that hit hard. Clint didn't just give him a form, he gave him permission to breathe again. That's what most people missed. This wasn't just a story about a celebrity doing something nice. It was about a man who needed to believe he still mattered. And someone, quietly, firmly, told him he did. There were kids in that DMV, teenagers, early 20s, waiting for permit tests, rolling their eyes, bored, out of their minds. But later, one of them, 17 years old, posted on TikTok about the moment. "I didn't even know who Clint Eastwood was," he wrote. "But that old guy, he handled it like a boss, made the whole room chill out just by talking." The post went viral. Hundreds of comments came in from people saying, That's what real leadership looks like. That's how you handle a situation. More of this, please. And here's the thing. Clint never knew the kid was watching. Never meant to go viral. Never expected this to be a story. But that's the point. When you carry yourself with calm and character, someone's always watching. You don't need a script. You don't need a spotlight. You just need to show up like it matters. Because to someone, it does. There's something different about men like Clint. They don't react, they respond. They don't dominate, they direct. And when they speak, it's not to be heard, it's to be felt. That moment at the DMV, it wasn't a performance, it was a reflection of who he's always been. And that's what stuck with people. Because we live in a time where everything is fast, loud, and performative. But here was a moment so still, it echoed. No one recorded it, no one monetized it. And yet, everyone who was there walked out a little different. A little straighter, a little quieter, and maybe, for the first time in a long time, a little more hopeful. Because they didn't just see Clint Eastwood, they saw an example. And examples, they don't need to talk much. Months passed, but the story didn't fade. It kept popping up in coffee shop conversations, barbershop chairs, veterans' halls, Sunday sermons. People retold it like a modern fable. Each time the details would change slightly. He walked in slow like a storm rolling in, or he just looked at the guy and everything stopped. Some said he growled the line, others said it was barely a whisper, but nobody cared about the precision. What mattered was the feeling it left behind. Because people weren't quoting the moment for drama, they were passing it down like a tool, a lesson, a kind of permission to be strong without being cruel, to lead without needing applause. And if you're listening to this, maybe that's what you're hungry for too. Not just another viral headline, but proof that quiet power still works, that somewhere dignity still lives, and maybe, just maybe, that it still wins. Clint finished his paperwork that day and walked out without a single glance back. Didn't wait for praise, didn't wave, didn't need to. And that silence, that was the loudest thing he said all day. Because some men don't need to explain themselves. They just show you how it's done. David kept that envelope, by the way. The one with the form. He keeps it in his glove compartment now. Not because he needs it, but because it reminds him of what that moment really was. A reset. A second chance. A lesson that didn't come with a lecture. So, if this story moved you, even just a little, here's your part. Don't wait for the cameras. Be the calm in someone else's storm. Because you never know who's watching. And sometimes, all it takes is one quiet voice to change the room, just like Clint did.